Check 1, 2.
The February 19th meeting of the Community Services Committee will come to order, please. I'll have a roll call.
Ms. Weber, Ms. Parker, Mr. Legess,
Present.
Ms. Polk,
Present.
Mr. Snipes, Ms. Peters,
Present.
Ms. Dunbar, Mr. Fairfield,
Present.
Mr. Zenz, Mr. Carrico,
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff,
Present.
Mr. Featherling,
Present.
Mr. Swanson,
Present.
Mr. Zucolo.
Present.
I'm sorry, Miss Zucolo. I got ahead of myself.
know where he is.
Mr. Wheeler
Present. Sorry.
and Mr. Searoy.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Al. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from January 15th. You each hopefully received them by email and have read them and printed them. So if there's a motion to approve those, Ms. Polk will motion to approve, a second by Mr. Swanson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, say aye. Motion is carried. We have a request to have the agenda item changed for animal control because Julie needs to be at a different location at 9:30. So if you have no problem with that, we'll have Julie go first under animal control. Okay, miss.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me change the routine here. Usually have these signed. Sure copy. Good morning.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the report of the animal control. Is there a motion for that, please? Ms. Polk again, a second, please. Mr. Featherling, second. Any discussion about the report? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say aye. Motion carried. Okay, ready to go.
Report's pretty simple this year. Our registration is up for the month, and that's always nice to get off to a good start for the year. Bite numbers are down a little bit. That's hopefully everybody has kind of been hunkered in and trying to just get through this winter. We always like to see them down. You'll see that the number of cats in our shelter are way down. We had one of our northern shelter partners reach out to us earlier in January and asked if they could come and take some cats. They took 25 cats the first time. They came back a couple weeks later and took 8 more, just about cleaned us out. And stated that those 25 had already been adopted, which always amazes us that the animals, up north just get adopted so much sooner, whether it's population, whatever the reasons are. We're happy to partner with them, and because the ultimate goal is to get these animals into homes. So we're real happy about that as well. Any questions on the report?
Let me, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. If in the future, if we could each month, could we get a separate column on the euthanasias that break out owner requested versus the others? Because I think the public would be very surprised on most of, in your industry as a whole, most of are owner requested instead of us just, there's a misconception out there. So I think that that's something this committee should see every month.
Yeah, many of them are, and now there is new state law that will require all shelters, not only animal controls, but rescues, humane societies, everyone. I mean, there's a degree of reporting that you have to turn in when you apply to renew your license in June. They've now taken this further and really want this broken down. It's really to be turned in at the end of the year. So in 2020, you'll be reporting for 2019, but we are already doing that, so I'm certainly happy to provide that.
Thank you. Good. It's a good request because I had heard that too. Many owners just come in and say, I don't want this dog anymore. Is that true?
Well, usually if someone's coming in and they just don't want the animal anymore, we try to get them to go to private rescues if it's just an owner surrender. But yes, people do come in requesting a euthanasia. There have been times when, we've looked at the situation and said, if we think we can help this pet, would you give us permission to do so? It is their property. If they say absolutely no, I request that my pet is put down, we'll honor the request, but that's not really happening to a healthy, friendly animal. There's a medical reason, there's, an aggression reason, something like that. And some of the hospitals, if people can't afford their services, then they'll suggest that they come over to our organization. So yeah, we do provide that service.
The other nice statistic is 44 animals adopted. So
Yes.
that's a very nice statistic.
Yeah,
so-
and that is a cumulative of both adoptions and transfers, which I break down on the
Oh, is
right
it?
or left-hand side there.
Okay.
But that means they've left the building and they have better chance at getting home.
Any other questions on this report? Okay. What else would you like?
I have legislative items that are coming down the rather quickly. This is always a little bit hard. I am involved with the Animal Control Association, the state association. I've been recently elected as president to the association, and so I know I can act on behalf of IACA, but I have to request permission to act on behalf of the county. So I've prepared what we have thus far. I know things are popping up every day. The state association actually hired a lobbyist to help keep an eye on different bills and act on IACA's behalf if someone's not available. So a couple of these things you'll see we have not taken a position on because the group hasn't really had a chance to discuss and vote one way or another. Senate Bill 61, I believe it may be in a hearing on Thursday. The opposition to this is that it weakens the sterilization of adopted animals and eliminates home rule for the Animal Control Act. Those are two of the things that cause us to oppose this particular bill. The Senate Bill 131 requires rabies vaccinations for cats. If anyone recalls, last year this bill was out there, but then it kind of got gutted and changed completely when it passed. Throughout the state, it was being posted even in Newswise, vaccinations required for cats. And indeed, that's what the title was, but the bill had changed completely. So that is back out there again as well. Some of the history on that, we looked over the last 5 years. Just according to the CDC, the incidence of rabies in cats is 4 times higher than that in dogs. And certainly we're looking throughout the state, but we're looking at numbers of 303 cats to 69 dogs in 2010, bump up to 2015, 244 cats as opposed to 67 dogs. And a lot of these things are over on the East Coast, but still this is nationwide, and we think it's important that cats, they're good hunters. In our area here, we have cats that have either been ordered to be euthanized or have to undergo a 6-month quarantine because they're in a house, they haven't been vaccinated, they catch the bat, and it poses a threat. So we think that that's a good thing to have these cats vaccinated. It's safer for them, protects them, and then again protects us.
And the next one about unlawful to use an animal in a traveling animal act. So then, does it become a non-traveling animal? What is?
Well, they've already prohibited elephants.
Oh, yes.
So I think they're just working on basically trying to get all of the, the tigers and the animals out of circus acts. Circuses are becoming less and less appealing. People don't want to see those animals traveling around and stories of them being mistreated in order just to entertain us two-legged people. Yeah. So we certainly support that as well. There are, like I said, a couple of these things that we have not taken a position on. If anybody has any questions, would like to talk to me about these things, you have insight, suggestions, I'm certainly would be happy to talk to anyone at all. On the back, you may have 2 pages. I have mine flipped. The House Bill 1645, IACA supports that. It defines the service animal. I think we've all seen how sometimes the service animal provision has gotten carried away. The airlines were inundated with peacocks and potbelly pigs and all kinds of things as an emotional support animal. So they're looking at some language to make sure that those that really need this, that provision is still there, but that it's not getting taken advantage of and kind of getting carried away with. So we support that as well. And there are, our other things that I'll be back to let you know what IACA's position is. So I guess my question to the committee is, what would the county allow me to do on behalf of the county? I think it has to go onto the board. and these bills come kind of swift. I often don't have time to get up here on a monthly basis, you know, and report and then get to the board in order to act on them. So my question is, does my authority or my ability stop with IACA, or am I allowed to act on behalf of anything with the county?
Actually, it does stop with IACA. The board executive committee would have to vote, and the full board would have to vote to support any position on a bill. And that we typically only then would send letters to legislators or get our lobbyists engaged in that. So by all means, you know, if we have enough time, bring it to the board and explain it to the executive committee if you think it's an important issue, and then we'll you know, obviously it has to be on the agenda, but then we'll send it to the full board. But you can't speak for the county board in those matters.
Okay. For
We
those
take
that,
your advice very seriously and under serious counsel, but yeah.
Sure.
definitely, yeah.
Those that we have made an opinion on, opposed, or support, could I ask that those be sent on to the county board meeting?
The support ones, yes.
Yes,
Can you be there to explain them?
absolutely.
Okay, yes. It'll be the executive committee meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, that's where it goes.
okay. Thank you.
The last one, I just wanted to ask a little bit about it. One was, I think one of these is about if an animal is in distress in a vehicle, and like a citizen can come by and smash the window to get it help. Is that how the law reads?
Last year, this bill was out there as well, and it got a lot of opposition from many councils, the Sheriff's Association. There's already language on the books that provide ways to help these animals if they're in distress. There's also, you know, the fact that if any one of us walked upon a vehicle and truly seen an animal gasping for air, and we did something to help that animal, if the individual wanted to sue the person that helped the animal, that would have to go to the state's attorney's office. It's our opinion that most state's attorneys wouldn't probably elect to prosecute somebody that truly was trying to help an animal in need. Some of the concerns that we have is, you know, animals that, you know, maybe you've been out for a walk with your animal and you stop, you've got to run into the gas station quickly. Some animals can look distressed just because they're a high anxiety animal. Their eyes are wide, they're panting, they're drooling. Somebody thinks that they're in distress and they're really not. Or you've got somebody breaking a window. Now you've damaged someone's property. You walk away with the animal. The vehicle is open. Maybe there's other items in the vehicle. Then people come along and may steal. There's poses a lot of problems to just allow citizens to, you know, start breaking windows and grabbing animals out. There's already language there that in place to deal with this.
Well, that clarifies it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's something else? Mr. Snipes, let me get you. Okay.
I was wondering, you know, I had dogs, Dobie, Bruce, Nimrod, Duchess, and if these dogs are microchipped, and say for some reason a new owner gets the dog pet, how is that microchip changed to reflect the new owner?
The original owner, whoever's associated with the chip, should go into a database. That you can usually do this online. You can call the company and let them know that there's been a change of ownership. We always tell folks when they're microchipping, make sure and keep your information updated. Maybe you've changed your phone number, your address, an emergency contact, or you've rehomed the animal. When animals come into us that are relinquished or stray and an owner doesn't claim them and they've got a microchip, then we're doing that exact same thing. We're contacting the organization and letting them know that you know, there is a new owner. This owner has been relinquished. It has gone through the legal process, and the chip information needs to be changed.
So that means they can, so do they change? They don't have to go back into the animal and put another microchip. They can change it from a computer somewhere
Yes,
into that, and they'll reflect the new owners?
yes.
Okay.
And if we find an animal that has a chip and somebody says, well, I just got this animal last week, we won't release that animal to that person until we talk to the owner that's associated with the chip to make sure that that's, you know, was a legitimate transfer of ownership.
Good question. Thank you. Okay. What do you have there to tell us about?
BARC has their annual event coming up, our comedy event, Raise the Wolf, March 30th. It's a lot of fun. I hope everybody will come. Tickets are $30. You can buy a pair for $50. It's casual, a lot of laughter. It's, you know, the event that tries to help us raise money for this building fund. And if you have any questions, if you need tickets, don't hesitate to certainly give me a call. You can go on BARC's website. They can be purchased online. I believe they can also be purchased at Fieldstone Credit Union and Razzle Dazzle Doggy Boutique.
Any questions about that? Yes, Mr.
I don't have any other
Okay,
questions, so
sure.
does anyone have any
Anything else?
questions?
Anything else? But you don't have tickets today.
I do have a few with me. I have
Okay.
6 tickets.
Okay.
In case anybody's interested, if
Okay.
anybody wants to donate a raffle basket or sponsor the
Oh.
event, BARC would certainly be very appreciative of that.
Okay, good. That's good news. Go ahead with
Oh,
something else.
thank you. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had 2 groups of people come into my office, and then another phone call with 2 people on the line regarding they're expressed that they were being told that Animal Control was building a building in 2020 out at the new location, and I wanted to first of all find out if that's what is being communicated to any public organizations, because there's no way we're building a building by 2020. We don't have enough money to survive, and so I just want to make sure that that is not being communicated to the public. There has to be a misunderstanding.
You know, when people ask me all the time, you know, when are you going to build this building? When is this going to happen? I've been saying for 19 years, I hope it's yesterday.
Right.
Certainly, I've probably said, boy, it would be nice to be able to break ground in 2020. You know, those goals, those are always hopes and dreams, and if wishes were ponies kind of thing.
Right.
You know, I've had goals over, I started this job being told by a county board member that we would have a building in 2 years. Well, 19 years later, I'm still hoping in 2 years that we'll have a building. You know, I've had a lot of people ask why we can't go out, and why BARC or Animal Control, why we can't just go out and get funding, go talk to banks. And I've tried to explain this is not the process how this works. Yes, I'm working with an architect, but ultimately, before anything's done, before drawings are approved, funding is done, anything is done, it has to come to this committee, and it has to be approved by the committee and the full board. You know, I can do preparation, I can make wishes and hopes, I can shoot for, you know, a date, but there is certainly nothing written in stone, and you know, they're all hopeful things, but until something is done and set by the board,
Right.
there's no specific date.
Well, you bring up a good point, because the people on this committee that were here prior may remember that I believe it was BARC funds that were going to be used to get a rendering of what a potential building would look like, so you could use that for fundraising efforts. But I didn't realize that we were down to working with an architect and getting drawings, and I'm wondering, what strategic plan do you have that documents what the role of this organization is going to be, what the space needs are going to be, what the funding is to achieve those goals, to be able to go and start doing an architectural drawing. It concerns me because we haven't even seen a strategic plan on what the county is going to have to fund based on what this building is intended to do. And that's, I hope you understand, we're still 6-7 years away from being even creditworthy to get a bond. I mean, we can't go out and borrow money until we're completely not having to borrow money to survive. And so that's why I'm having this conversation here, because when I have people from the public come in, I don't even know your strategic vision on what you want this facility to be, and we haven't blessed what that vision is, because it may be different than what we think.
Sure.
You know?
Several months ago, gosh, probably last year, I had came to the committee, and the committee approved that I hire an architect and we start getting some drawings put in place and get a rendering so that it would better show the public what we're working for, what you know, the goals that we're working for. And ultimately, when that is done, that's still going to come back to the committee, and you know, the board could look at this and say, no, we don't like this at all. We don't want this type of you know, layout or building or drawing. But that was approved last year to work on these architectural drawings. And that's really all I've been doing, trying to get information that says, if this is the type of building we want, this is what it's going to cost per square foot. This is what we're going to need in order to achieve this. I did speak with the finance director several months ago and asked if he was willing to sit down and work on a business plan with me. He said he would. He needed a little more information from the architect, which I've asked for, and just haven't yet gone back to speak with him further.
Our finance director here, or?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're starting with what you envision the building is, and you're gonna back into the number and then tell us what it costs to operate that building on a yearly basis,
Yes.
in terms of personnel, overhead costs, all of that stuff.
Yes. So that there is a
Okay.
business plan that says, okay, if we can build this building, if this is the vision we have, this is what we're going to need to build it and operate it.
Okay, well, it's probably good if the public is not coming to me saying, you know, this building is saying they're gonna be built in 2020, and we don't even know what that vision is. So we might wanna have conversations with the funding arm, for, you know, the fundraising arm for this at BARC, and other people connected to this effort, because it concerns me
Okay.
that we don't even know, do we even wanna be in the adoption business? Do we just wanna be out there enforcing, like going after dog fighters, and have the county board's money going after that, and let the adoption people do what they do well? We haven't determined that yet either.
And you know, you're correct in the fact that we certainly still offer animals for adoption, but far and large, we're transferring more and not focusing
Right.
our efforts on trying to compete with the private organizations for adoption fairs. We're not out doing adoption fairs anymore. Those organizations are really good at that. They oftentimes don't carry the other tasks that our department carries in enforcing the laws and doing the criminal investigations. Some of them have humane investigators, and you know, they do go out. More and more, those communications are building with our department, with those organizations. We're talking more. Had a lunch with one of the local organizations here a few weeks ago in an effort to try to build those bridges better. Work together, and not trying for each person to do the same job. You know, if there's one organization that's really good at one thing, then let's all be supportive of that organization and what they're really good at. And, you know, and that way, maybe we're getting much more accomplished in the community without everybody running after, you know, the same rabbit, so to speak.
Sure, good. Yeah, so if you develop that strategic plan and then you're able to talk to Steve and put that down on paper and see what the numbers are, sooner the better, then we know where we're shooting.
Okay.
Thanks.
So
welcome.
that's a goal. You have a time goal on
No,
that?
just whenever, I mean, we're still years and years away from being able to get a bond. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation, you know?
And in the meantime, we're, you know, striving to raise as much money as possible so that, you know, when we come back to the board, we can, you know, basically say, we've been able to raise this much money, this is how much more that we may need. And,
That's
you know,
IPTIP, right? That's the IPTIP fund
and BARC,
and BARC.
you
both.
know,
So
both.
between the two, what would you estimate now?
Right now, today, we've got about $250,000. I think that they're, once I get my final end budget from 2018, I think there are some funds that will be able to be moved over to the IPTIP. But I haven't, you know, put that determination until I see those final numbers.
Okay. That's all I had.
Good. Excuse me a second, Mr. Searoy.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Julie, how close are your renderings are to be finalized, or you've probably had some input on the square footage and the building layout, kind of your setup. So how close are they to being complete?
I think they're fairly close. Now, we've certainly gone back and, you know, you put something down on paper and then your thoughts start to flow a little bit more. And, you know, I can think of something in my head, but I'm not an architect. So once that gets on paper, you really start thinking about how it's going to function. And we've gone back 2 or 3 times and sat down and said, you know, I think this isn't going to work. Could we do this? Could we do that? and myself and our veterinarian administrator, my shelter manager, went and visited Hinsdale Humane Society recently. They have just renovated a building. Again, we
Got some ideas from them,
We
what
came
works
back-
and what doesn't work.
looked at our drawing again, going, this isn't going to work. Sat down, asked for some more changes, and I have not gotten feedback on that yet. I hope that's close. I would have loved to have at least a visual for the event on the 30th, March 30th. Not as, again, this is a visual of what we hope could be.
Right.
And
That's the rendering.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone. There's no real architect plans except for the drawing of the building.
correct. I mean, there's no contractors
Right. There's
that
no
have been
no
approached.
true square footage. You don't really know where the bathrooms are going to be.
Well, yeah, they're putting some of that
Okay.
stuff in, so that we can look at how the layout works, so that when animals are coming in, we make sure that we're not cross-contaminating. As an animal comes in, is it going to be passing a healthy animal? Where's it going to go when it first gets processed in? How are the animals going to be staged as a stray? Currently in our shelter, everything's pretty much in one room. I mean, we've eliminated the use of the garage for more caging. We have another little small area that we can use somewhat for isolation or treatment. But if we get a rabies observation dog, it's going into a cage next to a stray dog or an adoptable dog. That really the state law, says they should be quarantined and not exposed to the public or other animals. Now they're in separate cages, but it's always been a concern that somebody walking by could reach a hand out. So we want to make sure that we have the vision and the accommodations to really move this out, to put the cat separately, to put the dog separately.
So not by March 30th, you're going to have these.
I was hoping, but
Okay.
I have not been given that yet. So
Okay.
So that would be your hope, though.
Yeah, I'm
That would
hoping-
be your hope. So that would be a goal.
right.
Be nice because it's always easier to fund something when you can see it.
And that was last year when I came and asked the committee. I think that was what our goal was, to try to put a true vision to what we hope could be.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Go.
Thank you. How much are you thinking that the building's going to be the final cost? Has the architect given you any idea?
He has basically said about $150 a square foot on the building.
How many square feet are you thinking?
Well, it certainly, we started out thinking we'd need phases because we knew we probably couldn't build everything all in one. We've changed some things. I think where we're at now, we're hoping that while phase one might have had to expand a little bit from our first conversation, it may take this department well into the future, to where all of that could be completely paid for before you'd even look at a phase two. You don't want to put yourself in a situation with phase one that you can't function very well.
How many
So-
square foot?
Probably, I think what we're looking at on this one, without him coming back to me and telling me exactly, we're probably looking at approximately 4,500 square feet. Right now, we're functioning out of about 2,200.
And the 250,000 that you've raised already, how long did it take you to raise that? When did you start fundraising?
Well, this has probably been over, Bark. They started in probably 2001, their small
Okay.
group. Things really kind of fell apart in 2008, along with everything else. And several people lost jobs, had to relocate. So then the group really got active again in 2013 and has been, a little bit more steady since then.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Who's your architect? Did you do an RFQ and how much are you paying him? Her?
Jeff Jarvis is the architect, and I believe that I don't have the total in my notes right now, but it was 3,000 and something that the committee approved last year for him. and he hasn't even billed us yet because I've asked him and he said, no, I'm not ready yet.
Did you get all your questions, Ms. Dunbar? Okay. Mr. Snipes?
Montino?
No, he lives in Kankakee.
Oh, he's in Kankakee? Oh, okay. I think he did something in Montino. I saw him over there. So it looks like you have about a little less than a third for phase one, because if we're looking at $150 and we're looking at 4,500 square feet, that comes out to be about 675,000. So it looks like a third is on its way. And I'm hearing you say phases because I'm going to ask, are we going to do some of these things in phases? It has been a long time. Being one of the kind of being here in the 90s and now here in 2019, the process has not picked up the steam that it necessarily has. I was here when Ann Bernard and them came. Matter of fact, how she came on because she was part of this. She was in support of taking care of animals and making sure that things were done. So I've been here through a lot of the conversations, and trust at some point that it's going to be coming to fruition at some particular point, with a third of that being raised, and then whatever is about to be raised, or whether if you got half, the whole 9 yards. I don't see it being so far out there into the future, because at some point we need to make something happen, and we have in little baby steps or whatever when we got the 5 acres that's out there. So I do applaud your efforts. I do believe, at least from conversating, that you are taking an expertise of other animal control buildings and things throughout to find out the most efficient, the most cost-effective process or whatever. And I do believe that when that comes to fruition, we're probably going to be at some state of the arts when you bring it back to the conversation within our budget. Let me say that, within our budget, or within your budget. But I do applaud you in the efforts of taking, the horn of the bull and trying to lead it or whatever, and know that even though the process is slow, it is it is something that we're looking forward to make happen. Given the 2008 process that happened, at some point we'll see a recovery when that happens. But I thank you for Bark and some of the other ones that are taking the bulls by the horn and actually coming up with revenue to kind of help the county, that way we're not footing the whole particular bill. And at some point we'll be able to look at it, wink, and say, it's time, and so I don't want all hopes to be gone. Or you think that the board is not behind you. If they're not, I am, but I do know some others are here that's behind you. So I want to give you some kudos in that area, and to keep on keeping on until we at least see the ground breaking and the building going up.
Thank you.
Very nice comments. Thank you. Hooray for you.
Thanks.
Anything else? Thank you. I hope you can get to your next meeting okay. Thanks. Let's go on to the county clerk's report. Mr. Hendrickson. Can someone move that the report be approved? Ms. Dunbar? And Ms. Peters seconds it. All in favor of accepting the report, please say aye. All opposed, say aye. Motion carried. Please go ahead.
Good morning. I have not much of anything. Just wanted to let y'all know, a week from today is the consolidated primary in 3 wards in the city of Kankakee, in the 1st, 2nd, and 6th wards. And 6 weeks from today, we will have the consolidated election, which will be everybody in the county. So we're going to be doing some motoring here between the two, getting everything done for the primary election and getting ready for the consolidated election. We did have one polling place, the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church that's on the corner of 102 and Career Center Road. That's been for sale for a long time, and it's finally been sold. I believe Hospice bought the property. It will not be available for us as a polling place for the April election. We are going to move those voters to the administration building on the Bourbonnais Village Hall for this election only. And then following that election, we'll see what they've done with the construction over at the hospice to see if it's still viable for us as a polling place. Otherwise, we'll look at another location and we'll bring that to you at that time. Other than that, I have no questions. If anybody's got any questions for me, be happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Anything?
Awesome, I'm running.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
All right. Okay. Let's go on to the assessor's report. Eric Blair, is there a motion to approve Ms. Peters and Ms. Dunbar II? Nice tag team back there. That'll be good. All in favor of the assessor's report, say aye. Any opposed, say aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Hi. No.
Good morning. I'll do my best to be as brief as possible. I just have a few things to talk about this morning. Some things that are going on in the department and a couple things that we're waiting for. So one thing I wanted to report, following up on last month's discussion, we did roll DevNet to the 2019 assessment year, and we printed the assessment books. Those have been distributed to all of the township assessors throughout January and a little bit into February. So the assessors are in possession of those books or exports. Some of them we do it digitally. So all of that is done, and they've got it in those numbers in a good amount of time so that they have an opportunity to make any adjustments that they need for the year. Also, the state asks early in the year that we do a employment verification report for all of the townships and those that work for us here at the county. So those have been mailed off to the Department of Revenue. That was done at the end of January. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, we were really in good shape as far as reporting all of the 2018 sales that occurred. We have to report all of those to the Department of Revenue in a couple of different ways. That was done and I probably should have mentioned this last month, in the first 10 days or so of January, we had everything from 2018 reported to them. And I got some good feedback from the Department of Revenue that we were one of the first counties in the state to be able to do that this year. So hopefully that leads to, and that leads to some things that are pending, that hopefully that leads to a swifter response from the Department of Revenue as far as what they consider to be a valid sale. Not every sale that we get is valid and qualifies for the sales ratio study. So we're waiting on that report. And that could come any day all the way up through sometime in May. It just depends on when the Department of Revenue is able to get that completed. The other thing that we're waiting on is the certification of the final abstract for 2018. Of course, I've told this committee that we got that off to the clerk before the end of the year. I know the clerk mailed that in. I've responded to all of the questions that they've had. And I was told last week I did contact the Department of Revenue to see where they were in the process of giving us a final factor. And what they told me was the person that was working on that went on vacation and comes back today. So hopefully by the end of the week we'll have a final for the clerk so that they can work in the extension, among the election things that they're dealing with too. So those were the things that I wanted to discuss today. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Mr. Snipes, question?
I do know that the tax bill went out and things have been challenged, and but in the city of Kankakee, I'm just wondering, or whether I don't know if your department would know, but they stated they was going to do a 43%, but they kind of come to a 25%. So they've moved from taking a 60% to a 75% retention of the taxes, but they're going to rebate or reduce, I guess is the proper term, to 25%. Now, when that tax bill comes out, when the tax bill come out, they have to be paid in June. Will they see, or have they contacted, or have anybody said anything about that 25% tax reduction, so that we will know that it will be taking place in our June and then the latter bill?
Okay, so one of the first things I want to address is you had said that the tax bills already came out. That's not true. I think what you're talking
I said
about.
when it comes out. No, I'm talking about the tax bill last year.
I think you were maybe talking about the assessment change
The
notices
assessment
coming
change,
out.
right.
Yeah. So that part came out in September. We went through the appeals process, that sort of thing. Anything to do with the city of Kankakee reduction of their levy or whatever that is, that's more of a question for the clerk. And I don't have any information on, the progress in those terms. That doesn't really come across my desk, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to answer that question.
Okay. Where's that clerk at? Oh.
The clerk left.
Thank you. I was going to say we know where to take it, or because by the time they're going to say assessment, so I do know that what they will be doing is, if they don't see that, or if there's some questions, I know they're going to be running probably to your office called assessor.
Sure.
Versus that. I'm thinking that maybe the township assessor is going to do something and work with the clerk, but I just want to find out their process, because they're kind of calling to ask, is it going to be reduced like they said it was, because of the shift from the 43 to the 25, but I didn't know how that process takes place, and then who actually is responsible for the, to receive the reduction from them to implement on the tax bills, and if it'll be done in time.
Sure. If I understand it correctly, that would be a lesser request by that taxing body, and all of that would be handled with the tax rate in the clerk's office. So, potentially maybe save that question for next month for Dan, or maybe see him in his office too. Might be a good idea.
All right, thanks.
Anything else? So the sales you're talking about are property sales, right?
Right.
Land.
All of the real estate sales, we need to report digitally to the state, as well as some need to be mailed in if they weren't done through the MyDex system with the recorder. So, obviously we can't report all of the 2018 sales until we get those at the end of December. So, the fact that we got them done and in by the 9th, 10th of January speaks to the person that does that and got it done very quickly, so that they can look at those sales and tell us which ones they think are qualified for the study and which ones don't. But having it in as early as we do, I'm hopeful that might lead to a little bit of a quicker response from the Department of Revenue, so that we can get that part done as well.
Since they expressed their appreciation to you before.
Sure.
Anything else? Okay, thank you for your report.
Have a nice day, folks.
Next, we'll turn to the recorder's office, Laurie Gadboy.
But I had Robin today. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Questions on the report?
Is there a motion to please approve of Mr. Legess? Second to Mr. Let me hold it. Fairfield. He's the second person. Any other discussion about the report? All in favor say aye. Any opposed say aye. Motion carried. Okay.
Nothing really too exciting to report in my office. We continue working on backlog. Second set of books have gone out. Incurred a little bit of a problem with them. We found out we have 4 books that have a separate key. A key that nobody has. a lock that a locksmith can't unlock. So, yeah, I mean, I've checked the circuit clerk, I've checked with everyone. I've checked all Dan's keys, all my keys. So, yeah, unfortunately, of course, we had to pick, you know, they were the two of the books that were the worst of the worst. And so we're working on that. So, just minor setback.
So is there a flap on it that locks? Is that how?
Well, it's the binding.
Oh.
Yeah, it's literally a key lock that no key fits. So pretty interesting. So we're working on it. Like I said, minor setback. Glad it's now and not later. But other than that, we're just moving along. February is, for being a short month, it started out to be an awesome month for us. So it's kept us busy, and there are sales happening. So it's a good thing. It's a very, very good thing.
Good to hear.
So, yep.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Snipes?
I know back some time ago we had this chaos with MERS. Has it now kind of died down and
No, it's still
a problem?
an ugly animal that we're dealing with on a regular basis. Legislatively, it hasn't grown any legs to do anything. So, but it is still not a good partner in the world of the recorders.
Why don't we explain for anybody that's new?
MERS is the Mortgage Electronic Registration System that was created in the early 2000s now, I believe. And my best description to give is it is a country club for the big banks. So it is a place where the big banks file, they say, by paying a membership fee to MERS to hold all the assignments. Colton buys a house and gets a mortgage. Then that mortgage is sold. So every time that mortgage is sold, it's called an assignment. They're assigning that mortgage to somebody else, not to your original bank A. By the time it's all done, it could be bank C, D, E, F, whoever. Depending on if he's a good patron and pays his mortgage or not, if he ends up in foreclosure, it becomes a little messy. And that's where then these banks are having to file lost assignments or getting caught up with assignments in our office because we hold the true chain of title of your financial transaction. So, but MERS was created so these big banks didn't have to do that with the local recorder's office because they thought they were saving money. So it's kind of a cat and mouse game. We've had some legislative meetings with some senators and representatives. During the whole robo-signing mess and everything that we experienced in 8, 9, and 10, we were hoping to really kind of squash MERS. Unfortunately, we're not in Illinois able to do that. But we are trying to really hold true and responsible to our citizens of Kankakee County that your chain of title needs to be here in our office where it's accessible to you and anyone else that is reviewing your records. So
Thanks for explaining.
so it's just one of those other extra things that goes on.
Does that answer for you? Anything else?
Anything else? Any other questions? Again, the invitation holds true to all of our new county board members as well as our seasoned ones. You're welcome to stop into the office anytime, take a look around, ask questions, get to know the staff. They would appreciate it as I would too. So,
Thank you.
all right,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
that invitation. Appreciate it
Have a
a
great
lot.
day.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone have any old business to bring forward? Is there any new business to bring forward? Is there a motion to Mr. Legess, Mr. Snipes? So second the motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Meeting's adjourned.